hand-holding or a carefully released signal. The Taehyung, Jungkook photo that has ARMY asking one dangerous question: what if this photo was never meant to be just cute? What if the timing, the hands, the matching jackets, and the silence afterward were all part of something far more calculated than fans are ready to admit? That single image of Kim Taehyung and Jungkook standing side by side, fingers intertwined, has done what years of speculation, fan cams, and theories could not do. It split the global ARMY into two emotional camps almost overnight. One side insists this is nothing more than a pure, unfiltered moment of brotherhood between two members who grew up together under the same roof of fame. The other side, louder by the hour, is asking a question that refuses to disappear from timelines and group chats alike. Why now? The photo surfaced on January 29, 2026, shared by the X account at About Music YT, and within minutes, it was no longer just another BTS-related post. It was everywhere. Screenshots multiplied, translations spread across languages, and reactions poured in from Indonesia to the United States, from Brazil to South Korea. By the time the world caught its breath, the image had already surpassed 2.5 million views, tens of thousands of likes, and an engagement rate that rivaled official comeback teasers. But numbers alone don't explain the electricity surrounding this moment. The real tension lies beneath the surface, in the details fans can't stop replaying. Taehyung, calm and unreadable as ever, wearing a brown baseball cap marked with a simple S, a black mask partially obscuring his face, holding a water bottle in his left hand. Jungkook beside him, softer, almost playful, in a fluffy brown hat with dangling straps that instantly melted timelines. Both dressed in what fans immediately labeled couple jackets, cream and green tones stitched with an acorn embroidery that felt oddly symbolic to those looking for meaning.
Growth. Seeds.
Beginnings, and then there were the hands, not brushing, not accidental, fully, clearly held in a post-military era where every public move by BTS is dissected with surgical precision. ARMY knows better than to believe in coincidences. This isn't 2016. This is 2026. Every image carries weight. The timing alone has raised eyebrows. BTS had only recently reunited after completing mandatory military service, a chapter that forced fans into patience and imagination. The hunger for new content is real, and HYBE knows it. So why would a photo like this emerge without explanation, without a caption from the members themselves, without any immediate follow-up? Some fans point to Young Hoseok, J-Hope, whose name appeared in a standout reply thanking him for sharing the moment. If true, it adds another layer to the mystery. Was this pulled from a private archive? A recent reunion? Or something intentionally chosen to be released now, when anticipation for BTS's next phase is at its peak? ARMY reactions tell the story of a fandom arguing with itself in real time. One user celebrates the intimacy, calling it healing after years of waiting. Another begs openly for a Taehyung subunit song, convinced this is the soft launch of something bigger. Others post old clips, old interviews, old moments, stacking evidence like puzzle pieces finally clicking into place. This would break the internet. One reply reads. Another simply says, "Trust me." Trust what, exactly? Those who believe this is strategy, not spontaneity, argue that BTS has always understood the power of symbolism. From album concepts to choreography, nothing is random. Hand-holding, especially between two members whose bond has fueled one of the most talked about ships in K-pop history, is not an innocent choice in their eyes. It's a signal, dropped quietly, designed to ignite conversation without confirming anything outright. Yet there is a risk in this interpretation. BTS has repeatedly emphasized their brotherhood, their comfort with physical affection, their refusal to conform to rigid masculinity norms. To some ARMY, turning every tender moment into a theory feels like a betrayal of that trust. They ask a different question: why can't closeness just be closeness? And still, the doubts linger, because this photo did not come from a fan meeting, an airport sighting, or a chaotic backstage clip. It came from a large account, at a precise moment, with no denial and no clarification. Silence in the BTS universe has always spoken loudly. Industry observers quietly note that subunits are not an unusual strategy during comeback cycles, especially post-hiatus. A Taehyung, Jungkook pairing would not only satisfy long-standing fan curiosity, but dominate charts, headlines, and social media metrics instantly. HYBE doesn't need to announce such plans. A single image can do the work. Indonesia's ARMY community, one of the largest and most active in the world, amplified the conversation even further. Local trends mirrored global ones, with discussions oscillating between excitement, suspicion, and emotional overload. For fans who waded through enlistment updates and countdown calendars, this photo felt like both a gift and a question mark. Is this a promise? A test? Or simply two friends reminding the world that their bond survived everything? What makes the moment even more potent is what hasn't happened yet. No statement from HYBE. No comment from Taehyung. No emoji, no live broadcast, no behind-the-scenes explanation. Just the image, circulating endlessly, growing heavier with each theory attached to IT, and the absence of answers. ARMY fills the gaps. Some predict music. Others predict nothing at all. A few warn against reading too much into a single frame. And yet, no one is scrolling past it without stopping. Because whether intentional or not, the photo achieved something undeniable. It reminded the world that BTS, even in stillness, still moves culture. A simple gesture can freeze timelines, fracture opinions, and reignite speculation across continents. Oh, what was it really? A genuine moment of affection caught and shared without ulterior motive? Or a carefully timed spark meant to light the fuse of BTS's next era? The truth, as always with BTS, may sit somewhere in between. Or it may be something no one has guessed yet, and until the next update drops, one question remains suspended in the air, unanswered but impossible to ignore. If this was just a moment, why does it feel like the beginning of something? Because history tells ARMY one thing very clearly. When BTS lets the world feel too much from a single image, something usually follows. The longer the silence stretches, the louder the theories grow. Fans are no longer just talking about the hand-holding itself, but about the architecture of the moment. Why that room? Why that lighting? Why jackets that look deliberately paired? Not identical, yet unmistakably connected. Why release it now, when BTS is standing on the edge of its post-military rebirth, a phase many insiders describe as the most critical chapter of their career? In broadcast terms, this is what producers call a cold open.
No explanation.
No context. Just an emotionally loaded visual that pulls the audience in and refuses to let go. Veteran ARMYs remember similar patterns. A single photo before an album announcement. A casual comment before a world tour reveal. A moment that felt spontaneous until hindsight exposed its precision. BTS has never needed loud marketing. Their quiet moves echo the longest. And that is why some fans are convinced this image is not about romance, not even about shipping, but about narrative control. Taehyung and Jungkook represent two very different energies within BTS. One is introspective, artistic, enigmatic. The other is instinctive, emotionally open, globally magnetic. Together, they form a balance that has always drawn attention, whether on stage, in interviews, or in fleeting off-camera moments. Placing them side by side again, post-military, sends a subtle message. BTS is back, but not as you remember them. What complicates everything is how natural the photo feels. There is no performance tension, no idle polish turned to maximum brightness. This is not a red carpet. This is not a stage. It looks like a private space, possibly a home or studio, lined with books and personal items. That intimacy is what disarms the viewer. It doesn't feel like promotion, yet it behaves like one, and that contradiction is exactly what fuels obsession. Some fans argue that if this were a strategic tease, it would have been cleaner, more stylized, more official. But others counter that BTS has evolved past obvious signals. Their most effective messages now are the ones that feel accidental, the ones that make fans argue among themselves. Isn't that what's happening right now? On one side, fans plead for boundaries. They emphasize that physical affection has always been part of BTS's dynamic, long before ships gained traction online. They remind everyone that Taehyung and Jungkook enlisted, trained, and returned as men who survived isolation together. Holding hands, to them, is comfort, survival, familiarity in a world that keeps demanding reinvention. That on the other side, fans point to patterns too precise to ignore. The involvement of a major account, the possible connection to J-Hope, the decision to let the image breathe without denial, the immediate spike in engagement that rivaled official announcements. These are not accidents, they argue. These are calculated allowances, and perhaps the most unsettling thought for some is this. What if BTS is deliberately allowing ambiguity now? In an industry obsessed with clarity, ambiguity is power. It keeps conversations alive. It keeps headlines writing themselves. It allows multiple narratives to coexist without confirmation or rejection. And BTS, more than any other group, understands how to survive inside that space. This is why the phrase Taehyung subunit keeps resurfacing, even without evidence. Not because fans are desperate, but because the ground feels prepared. A subunit would not just be musically viable, it would be culturally explosive. It would dominate streaming platforms, fracture timelines, and attract media attention far beyond K-pop circles. But even if no subunit exists, the idea of it already works as momentum, and momentum is everything in 2026. BTS is no longer proving itself. It is redefining how legacy acts re-enter the spotlight. The post-military era is not about loud comebacks. It is about controlled impact. About reminding the world that they can still bend attention with a whisper. That is why this photo refuses to fade, because it doesn't answer anything. It asks, why now? Why them? Why silence? And perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all, why does it feel intentional without feeling staged? As days pass, the image continues to circulate, detached from its original post, living a second life across fan edits, reaction videos, and speculative threads. Each repost strips it further from context and loads it with new meaning. This is how myth forms in real time. For BTS, this may simply be a snapshot of friendship preserved and shared. For ARMY, it is a mirror reflecting their hopes, fears, and hunger for what comes next. And until Taehyung or Jungkook speaks, until HYB clarifies or contradicts, the photo remains suspended between innocence and intention. Not a statement, not a denial, just a moment powerful enough to make millions stop and ask the same thing. Was this really just a handhold or the quiet beginning of BTS's next move? Because in the BTS universe, moments like this don't end. They accumulate, as the hours turned. In today's, something subtle but important happened. The conversation stopped being only about Taehyung and Jungkook and started being about control. Control of narrative. Control of expectation. Control of silence. Media watchers began to notice how this single image was outperforming many official idol promotions in reach and emotional impact, without a single press release attached to it. That is not normal. That is not accidental. In newsroom terms, this is what analysts call a self-propagating story. Once released, it no longer needs fuel. Fans provide it. Emotions power it. Speculation sustains it. And BTS, famously, has mastered the art of letting the world talk for them. What makes this moment especially volatile is the post-military context. Historically, idols returning from enlistment face one of two narratives: nostalgia-driven revival or relevance anxiety. BTS is facing neither. Instead, they are confronting a different challenge: how to re-enter without repeating themselves. That a simple group photo would have been safe, predictable, comforting. This was not that. Choosing Taehyung and Jungkook, intentionally or not, places the spotlight on contrast and chemistry rather than scale. Two individuals instead of seven. Intimacy instead of spectacle. Emotion instead of announcement. It's a sharp pivot, and one that aligns eerily well with modern audience behavior, where smaller, emotionally charged content often travels farther than grand statements. Industry insiders quietly admit that if this were a test balloon, it worked beyond expectations. But let's talk about the detail many fans keep circling back to: the lack of correction in K-pop. When speculation crosses uncomfortable lines, agencies are quick to intervene. Clarifications are issued. Rumors are denied. Boundaries are drawn. In this case, nothing happened. No, please refrain from misinterpretation. No, this is just friendship. No follow-up content to dilute the impact. Silence, again. And silence in media is rarely empty. Some armies now wonder if BTS is entering a phase where they allow fans to project freely, no longer policing interpretation as strictly as before. After military service, after global dominance, after